of all, the Kiki Pod deck only needs to assemble 2 cards to win the game. And often a single birthing pod with anything can get you a game pretty quickly, whereas the Affinity deck needs a critical mass of cards, and every single card makes all the other cards weaker.
Vipin's going to start off the finals with an Inkmoth Nexus into a Springleaf Drum. Brian is going to play Misty Rainforest. He's going to go down 19, potentially 17. He's obviously got a Mana Accelerant to play here on turn number 1, so we'll see which one it is going to be. But for Vipin's side, not a very fast start for him.
No. I mean, he mulliganed, and he can't really go to 5. I mean, the Affinity deck mulligans so poorly, as we discussed. But hopefully, for Vipin's sake, he's got the ability to present something like an Etched Champion and a Cranial Plating, or a Ravager and a Steel Overseer, something that you can hit hard and not just be stopped by a couple flyers.
So Brian, searching his deck, figuring out what land he wants to get, goes by a forest. Looks like he's got something very specific in mind, if he can find it. There's the Stomping Ground. So he's going to go down to 17, and we'll figure out again what Mana Accelerant he wants to play. He's got access to Birds of Paradise and Noble Hierarch. Both 2 fantastic cards for his deck. The color fixing being the key, I think, more than the acceleration. And there's a Hierarch. So Vipin, turn number 2. Let's get a creature on the board, shall we? You see, he's got at least a Darksteel Citadel in his hand.
And it looks like at least a Plating. His hand's slightly more explosive than it looked at first glance.
Yeah.
After having drawn an Ornithopter this turn.
Yep, there's a Thopter. There is the Plating. And this is a Signal Pest. So that is a much better turn 2. A nice recovery here. So you can start dealing damage pretty quickly as Brian does draw one of those 4 copies of Restoration Angel.
Yeah, I mean, he's got access to Kasali Pride Mage as a potential trump to beat the Plating. He's got lots of flyers like Restoration Angel, Glenelendra Archmage, and Linvala, all of which cost 4. But beyond that, all he can really do is develop his mana and hope to start potting. You could Chord tactically, but it's a little bit slow, particularly when he's on the draw against an opponent with such a, what is this, like 3 turns and he's dead? Possibly 2 with good draws.
Well, there's a Birthing Pod. That's the scariest card from Lou's deck. So he's going to go down to 15 and pass the turn back, knowing that he's going to take a big punch in the mouth this turn.
Yeah, I mean, I think his hope is, well, I have to stabilize things. I hope that I just get hit hard now. There's nothing else added to the board, and then I can go get a Kasali Pride Mage to hit that Cranial Plating.
So Vipin's hand right now is a Darksteel Citadel and a copy of Glimmervoid. So basically what he's got on the table is what he's going to have to work with here. He's just trying to figure out how can I deal the most damage possible this turn.
It's also possible, depending on what's in his hand, it's also possible that he uses Birthing Pod multiple turns next turn. These Kiki Pod decks, unlike the Malheur Pod decks, often will be untapping their Birthing Pod, whether it's with Deceiver Exarch, Zealous Conscript, or something like Restoration Angel, untapping, resetting Deceiver Exarch.
Now, we see an attack here with Signal Pest and Inkmoth Nexus, not Blinkmoth Nexus. So he's going the Infect route instead of the damage route. How do we feel about that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. The Infect route is a for sure 2-turn clock, but doesn't punish Brian Lou's life total if he has to use Birthing Pods several times.
Yeah. If he goes the normal damage route, it actually restricts how many times Brian can actually use Birthing Pod.
Now, the flip side of this, of course, is that by going the Infect route, he shuts off cards like Kitchen Finks that would possibly give Brian Lou an extra turn.
So they draw there a copy of Linvala.
The big problem, like the problem I always have with the Infect plan as your A plan, is that a single flyer and now you've lost everything.
Yeah.
Because it's not like he doesn't have another Nexus, another Inkmoth Nexus anyway. So if a single flyer means, well, I guess no more Infect damage, back to normal damage, and then you've just wasted an entire turn that could have been half of Brian Lou's life total.
The thing is that Brian doesn't have 1 flyer, he's got 2. He's got Restoration Angel and Linvala in his hand right now. So Flying Blocker, that's not much of a problem for Lou.
Now, which one does he want to use? The advantage to Linvala, of course, is that it shuts down the possibility of an Arcbound Ravager off the top. The advantage to a Restoration Angel, instant speed, and you still have the Linvala later, because whichever one you play now is going to die to the Cranial Plating.
So Aaron Mason's going to go search out, looks like a Sacred Foundry, but Brian is giving this some consideration here. And this is why the Inkmoth Nexus attack looks a little bit more questionable now, because one of the things about Kiki Pot 2 is that the lands in their deck, they've got like this kind of volatile mana base, but it's also a painful mana base.
Absolutely. I mean, if he'd done 8 damage instead of 8 infect, Brian Liu would be all the way down at 4.
Yeah. So there is Linvala, Keeper of Silence. You see activated abilities of creatures your opponent's control can't be activated. But I think more importantly, it's 3 powers what's going to matter here, because it's probably going to jump in front of an Inkmoth Nexus this turn.
Now, if that's a Glimmer Void in his hand, as it looks like it might be, that means the Cranial Plating could potentially move at instant speed.
You don't see the interaction a ton with Cranial Plating anymore, but there is a Glimmer Void hanging out. We'll see if Vipin does see that. If he fires up a Nexus, he can, instantly move the Cranial Plating over to a different creature.
Now, this isn't this isn't like some easy decision by any means, because from the looks of it, he also is a Master of Ethereum, which is a powerful play that takes you down a very different kind of game. Master of Ethereum, very easy to block, but it makes his entire army into very dangerous threats.
So Vipin considering his options here.
Yeah, he's got a couple creatures that he could potentially use the Springleaf Drum on. He's got to weigh, do I want to be doing the whole move the plating thing around? Do I want to just put one guy in and not even bother moving the plating? Do I put the Master down pre-combat?
Actually, I think the card in this right now is actually a Vault Scourge. I don't think it's a Master. I'm not positive on that, but we'll see in just a second.
Oh yeah. I think it actually has to be a Vault Scourge, because it doesn't look like he plays Z Master. That was the other Affinity deck we just saw.
Yeah, Seagrace's deck had the Masters in it. So I believe Vipin's hand right now is that Glimmer Void that we saw a turn or two ago, and then a copy of Vault Scourge. So he's considering deploying Vault Scourge pre-combat right now at the cost of 2 life, which really doesn't matter very much to him at all.
When he starts taking some real damage, it will be Infinity Angels or Infinity Exarchs or Infinity Conscripts.
Yeah. So there's the Vault Scourge. Going to go down to 18, pay the Phyrexian mana for the Vault Scourge. You see him slide that over to the Springleaf Drum immediately. It looks like he's probably going to use that in some fashion to fire something up. Again, we'll see exactly how he wants to go about using this, because Vault Scourge isn't attacking this turn. So it's likely its best use is providing mana off a Springleaf Drum.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Cranial Plating onto the Ornithopter. Does he play the Glimmer Void pre-combat to threaten the move? He hasn't played a land already yet, right?
Nope, has not played a land yet. He's looking at that Glimmer Void, and he is not going to play that pre-combat. So you see the count here for the artifacts. Ornithopter is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the potential to become a 7-power creature. With a Nexus activation, of course. And it can actually become an 8.
Exactly.
Because you can activate the Inkmoth Nexus off of the Springleaf Drum Vault Scourge. So it can become an 8-power creature here for Vipin. Almost feels like you have to block anyway here to preserve your life total. It's not automatic. It just kind of feels like you need to block. Because then if you end up taking 8 and go to 4, you're a little bit scared of a card like Galvanic Blast ending the game.
But it looks like he's going to take it.
And I can understand wanting to take the damage here for Brian, because if Vipin doesn't have Galvanic Blast, what you can do now is you can play Linvala, have that on chump blocking duty next turn. He's got a Restoration Angel in his hand, and he can play Restoration Angel. He also has Kiki-Jiki in his hand. So he could combo off over the course of 2 turns.
All he has to do is get one more turn without having to lose his Restoration Angel, and he'll have the combo, assuming he has 1 more mana. But it's not clear he actually has that kind of time.
Brian pounds the top of his deck. What are you looking for, my friend?
It's got a lot of live draws.
I suppose Deceiver Exarch would get the job done, I believe. As Exarch could come into play, you can untap a land, you can untap something, and then turn that Linvala into a Kiki-Jiki, and that would end the game, as you would have infinite Exarchs. So that's one way to get the job done. Not sure if that's the exact card that Brian's looking for or not, though.
Yeah, he's got a few different options that could all win it. I think he's trying to see, is there any chance it can win right here? You know, like obviously he can turn Linvala into Kiki-Jiki if he wants. He could turn it into Zealous Conscript. He's got Restoration Angel in his hand, so if he just had 1 more mana, he could pod the Linvala into a Zealous Conscript, untap the pod, Restoration Angel, and pod the Angel into a Kiki-Jiki, but even then he doesn't have enough life because of that big hit he just took.
And the chains here are pretty insane that Kiki Pod is capable of doing. This is the tricky part. If you're very adept with the Kiki Pot deck, you know all of the different changes you can go through, and if you have a, if you have a 1 and a 2, you can kill your opponent. If you have a 2 and a 4, you can kill them. So this is part of what comes along with Kiki Pot, is knowing all of the chains that can occur when you have a birthing pod, and how much life they cost, which is actually important too.
Yeah, particularly when you're in these spots where not only do you only have 4 life to work with, which means only 1 cheat on the birthing pod, you also have to make sure you don't accidentally die to Signal Pest powering up some a Nexus or a Vault Scourge.
Yeah. And even though Vipin held on to that Glimmer Void this turn, again, that's a situation where we could still see that play for him on the next turn of moving Cranial Plague at instant speed.
Oh yeah,
and if he wasn't very available,
and if he wasn't going to move it anyway, this way, Brian doesn't know that he's going to be capable of that next turn.
So now you see Brian doing a little bit of math here, trying to figure out, okay, what can I do? What can't I do? I'm at 4 life. I'm at 8 infect. So now Ink Moth is a real threat, as is Blink Moth and the rest of these creatures. So he's just going to pass the turn back. If you're Vipin, your opponent does not activate Birthing Pod on their turn when they have creatures in play.
Angel.
It's Resto or Cord, right? Those are the options. And Cord, because there isn't triple green even laying around out there, you can kind of cut that option right out. So.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. In this spot, it's very clear Lou, unfortunately, can't hide the fact that he's going to have to Restoration Angel. The only question, does it matter? Because once the Glimmer Void comes down, this is 3 different flyers, all of which can be lethal if you move the plating onto them.
But it's Vipin's job to make sure he plays this correctly. What's this follow-up going to be? There's a Vault Scourge.
So now the Vault Scourge and the Springleaf Drum and the Glimmer Void make the double black. Will he see the play? This is actually 4 because of the Nexus also being lethal.
You see Vipin point at the Signal Pest and he says, Battle Cry, here's a Restoration Angel. That's going to blink the Noble Hierarch.
Doesn't do anything.
Nope. All those creatures are flying. Here's a bunch of blockers.
Yep, and at least this way, if Vipin forgets to move the plating, Brian Lou lives through the turn.
Yep. Gotta give himself the best chance to win,
Will Vipin see the Cranial Plate move play?
He can put on Signal Pest or Vault Scourge. Either will get it done.
He does.
And he sees this.
This is not his first rodeo.
No, it's not.
Oh, and the extra life to make sure. I love it.
Vipin Chackonal is going to win game number 1 here in the finals against Brian Lou. Affinity up a game against Kiki Potas. We're going to bring it back to the booth here very quickly because we do have one more trivia question for you guys. 12 months of premium is what we'll be giving away. You fire the rules. I'll do the question.
All right. The rules are tweet at SCG Live with your answer. Use all the hashtags, SCG Premium, hashtag GPRichmond, hashtag Next Level Deck Building, whatever hashtags you want.
That's also fine.
That in there. Yep. But the question, Cedric's going to ask, answer, and you will win 12 months of premium.
We'll draw one winner at the conclusion of the finals. My question, pretty simple. The Open Series was put on pause this weekend for Grand Prix Richmond, which we were obviously happy to do. The question is, next weekend, where will the Open Series be? He'll be commentating it with Patrick Sullivan. I'll be battling at it, and name the city where this is going to take place. And again, the winner will be drawn at the conclusion of our finals and announced then for 12 months of Star City Games Premium. As we're going to head back over to the match, we'll take a look at sideboards here. You've got the Kiki sideboard in front of you, and you said it gets mighty hateful after board.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Brian Lou is going to be there's going to be a storm raining down, whether it's Fiery Justice, Shatterstorm, a storm sort of like the kind of storms they have in Seattle where it rains a lot. Like it's like we're talking a very, very stormy type of setup.
Just all it does is rain.
Yeah. So and the amount of hate.
Yeah.
It's just
plenty of hate there too.
The Brian Lou's sideboard options include Shatterstorm, Fiery Justice, Kataki, War's Wage, Ancient Grudge, and 3 Path Exiles. That is a lot of very effective sideboard cards. Vipin won the quote-unquote easy one.
Yep.
That's the one he needs to win the first game to give himself the good chances because it's going to get harder. What is he going to bring in?
You see on the screen there, 1 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Relic Progenitors, a Torpor Orb, an Etch Champion, 2 Spellskites, a Blood Moon, 2 Ancient Grudge, a Spell Pierce, and 4 copies of Thoughtseize. So I think the easy one is Grafdigger's Cage. The other easy one is Torpor Orb. The rest gets a little bit difficult. For example, a card like Blood Moon against this mana base is actually pretty good, but it can take a little while to get there. And then, of course, with Noble Hierarch and Birds of Paradise, maybe Blood Moon doesn't actually end up doing anything at all. Would you want the one of Blood Moon?
I would want to do whatever Vipin wants to do because this is the type of thing where you have to have experience in your deck. Okay. I could see arguments either way. I believe it either way. But he has played this matchup a number of times. He has an idea of what kind of a game he wants there to be. Obviously, he needs to balance the risk of if he dilutes his deck too much, there isn't enough pressure. And Brian Liu can win with lots of mountains.
Yeah.
You know, like it takes just a single Noble Hierarch to turn everything on. He can use Birthing Pod to completely cheat Blood Moon if he has any creatures in play at all. And he has a number of red creatures that he can use to get things started. I think we will not see Blood Moon.
And with the fear of diluting your deck, you know, that makes me bring up Thoughtseize here as well as a card that can certainly have an impact in this matchup. But, you know, if you don't have Thoughtseize backed by pressure, then your Thoughtseizes aren't very good at all because you've diluted your deck too much. So do you want to bring in any? 4 seems like a lot. Maybe you want 1 or 2 to potentially draw to. And then last but not least, the Spellskite. But Spellskite's actually not great in this particular matchup. It's just okay. Part of the reason is because the combos that Kikipot tries to employ aren't broken up by Spellskite all that well.
Yeah, I mean, like, for instance, obviously, Spellskite, not at its best against the Deceiver Exarch Kiki-Jiki combo. That is the rare combination where Kiki can only target your own creatures, so you can't Spellskite it. And Deceiver, you choose the mode, and you're going to choose Untap, which means only your own stuff could be hit.
Correct. Restoration Angel, as well with Kiki-Jiki. Restoration Angel can only blink your own creatures. You can't do it with theirs. And obviously, Kiki can only target your own creatures, so it messes that one up, too. Zealous Conscripts gets a little hairy, but you can get creative. Like if they have Spellskite in play, you just play Conscripts, you take their Spellskite.
Yeah.
And then you go off with Kiki-Jiki. So for that reason, Spellskite's not great in this particular matchup at stopping the combo, and so I don't think that's going to come in.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing here, too, keep in mind, is that, you know, you can make a pretty strong argument for Thoughtseize, and here's the reason why. All the hate cards that you mentioned are high impact in this matchup. Shatterstorm, Fiery Justice. There's some real cards here that are worth Thoughtseizing. Yeah,
absolutely. Kataki War's Wage, Fiery Justice, and Shatterstorm are 3 A+ Thoughtseize targets. And if you have to settle for taking his Birthing Pod, oh, darn.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you don't want to slow down too much, but my goodness, are Brian Liu's best cards devastating for Vipin.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see a Thoughtseize or 2 come in here for Vipin. Again, as you mentioned, he's won the game that we feel he's supposed to win. Now Brian's going to be on the comeback trail, and at least he'll be on the play for game number 2. But if you're a Vipin fan, we know that if he loses this game, he'll be on the play for game number 3.
Yeah, that's the tough thing is, it's all fun and games now where you get to be on the play with the sideboard cards, but he's not going to be able to get away with the title unless he can beat Affinity with Affinity on the play.
Yeah. So we do see these players shuffling up here. Game 2 will be underway in just a moment, but we want to thank everybody at home who has watched Grand Prix Richmond. We've had a boatload of viewers this weekend.
Oh my gosh, it's been unbelievable. The most watched Grand Prix by far.
Yes.
By far. Sort of, I mean, it's been a lot of fun watching these matches. That's the sweet thing about Modern is having so many matches that there's been some good gameplay, some exciting turns, including one of the greatest games I've seen yesterday to close out the day.
Yeah, Patrick Diekman's match.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was definitely one for the highlight reel.
So we will see both these players draw up their 7 cards here. Brian, with a little shrug of the shoulders, taking a look. Will he be able to keep his 7 this go-around? Again, he's certainly got some cards that are worth mulliganing for, but it looks like he's going to play a Stomping Ground tapped and pass the turn. You can see there's at least a wall of roots in his hand as far as acceleration is concerned. Vipin going to play an Inkmoth Nexus. This is a Springleaf Drum. And this looks like a pretty honest start, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but you got to be careful. This is how Vipin started the last game. I mean, the turn 1 drum doesn't mean he's not going to explode next turn.
Brian's going to play a Firelit Thicket.
What do you think of playing the drum there instead of the Vault Scourge? Vault Scourge could have got in for a damage. It's not like the drum is going to even do anything.
Do you think single points matter that much in this particular matchup?
Yeah, I don't know.
As opposed to getting a bunch of mana in play and then going kaboom and drop everything?
It does increase the probability that Vipin can make a big play like Etch Champion or something on turn 3, but
yeah,
it just depends on the texture of his hand.
Here's 2 mana. There's an Arcbound Ravager. So there's the 1 counter on the Beast artifact. There's a follow-up. There is a Vault Scourge. Keep in mind, in Vipin's hand now, he does have a copy of Galvanic Blast, does have the necessary artifacts for Metalcraft, so he's good to go on that front as far as a 1-mana removal spell goes. As Brian will untap, he'll take a draw. It's an Arid Mesa, which he'll put directly into play.
What's Brian looking for besides the obvious Birthing Pod that he's always looking for?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Shatterstorm, Fiery Justice, Ancient Grudge, stuff like that. I think he wants to get that Arcbound Ravager off of the table as fast as he can. You know, you don't want to let that thing start to do anything. And
exerting an influence.
Yeah, if Vipin gets to untap, then he gets to have control over his Ravager, where right now I don't feel like he has very much control over it at all. So if there are removal spells to be cast, I would like to cast them. As you see, Brian has a Spellskite in his hand.
Spellskite's actually a very effective answer to Darkbound Ravager.
Yep.
When you use the trigger, you end up having to move it to the Spellskite.
Yep.
And it's not optional, right?
Now, so what you can do with that is modular is a you may. So what Spellskite will do is it'll be able to redirect the modular from Darkbound Ravager over to it, and then you can decline to actually use the modular from Darkbound Ravagers. But basically what it does is make Darkbound Ravager a much more fair creature.
Definitely. Man, I remember when Darkbound Ravager used to cost 3 in playtesting.
I was like, it costs 3?
Oh yeah, for a while.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That was a last minute change. Got to make sure that people are playing the modular creatures. That one worked out real well. So Volt Scourge getting in there.
Things would have been a lot different during Mirrored and Block Constructed if that had been 3 mana
Vault
spell.
cost 2 also.
Oh
One in a
my
black.
gosh.
Yeah.
The old Arcslogger deck actually would have been good then.
Former national team member Henry Stern kept trying to say, you know, I think this Disciple of the Vault is just super, super good. But he was just mostly playing with ATOGs and spell bombs.
Okay.
But of course, he didn't have access to Ravager yet. So anyway, Brian Liu fetching up, is this Hollow Fountain?
That is Hollow Fountain off the Arid Mesa. He's only going to take 1 to do that. So he's off to a much slower start. And to be fair, Vipin's off to a pretty slow start too. Now, it looks pretty innocent with that Springleaf Drum being the only thing that's untapped. But again, he does have Galvanic Blast in his hand. To be fair, Spellskite is at the ready to defend itself against that. So
I got so much respect for a man who can just wake up in the morning, wash his face in his sink, look in the mirror and be like, you know what? I want Hallowed Fountain and Firelit Thicket as my mana base.
Yeah.
That's a man who just does not care. That's just carefree. I believe in the good in the world. Everything's going to fall into place. And here we are in the finals of Grand Prix Richmond.
Obviously, everything's working out just fine as he's going to play an Arid Mesa and just pass the turn back yet again. Has not drawn one of those high-impact sideboard cards yet.
No, not yet. He does have Restoration Angel, so it's not like he's not advancing his board. But he doesn't have his pod, and he doesn't have his sideboard cards.
He's got pod in his hand.
Oh, yeah. Well, the only reason he's not playing it then is either a Chord or he just thinks that the Angel right now is such a good play. He might actually win next turn.
So what I think he's actually trying to do, Brian, I think he's trying to actually trap Vipin a little bit here, because he could have just played, you know, the pod and then activated, maybe not activated, whatever, because he's just passing the turn back. Now, yes, he could play Restoration Angel and jump in front of something, absolutely. But I feel like we could see a, you know, Vipin, do whatever you want to do, end of turn Restoration Angel, play a Birthing Pod, go nuts.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you play the Restoration Angel, having that in play, next turn you get to Birthing Pod your wall into a Deceiver. Your Deceiver untaps the pod, and you trade the Restoration Angel for a Kiki-Jiki and win on the spot.
Yep.
Vipin needs to keep Galvanic Blast up, or he will die on his next turn.
Problem is, again, is that 0-4 creature there in Spellskite, which is defending everything that Brian's able to do. So, again, it feels like Brian's not really doing anything, and he's going to be able to actually win out of nowhere, as he's going to sacrifice Arid Mesa here.
If this is the end step, I think he's won.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we're in the attack step yet or not. We can get clarification from our table spotter to see exactly what step we're in this game. But Brian is considering what to do, and we are in Vipin's end step.
Wow, no attacks. No attacks,
You
no
a little
blocks.
surprised by that?
I mean, it's tough because he doesn't want to just walk. Like if he's not prepared to make his creature break through the Spellskite, and it's not clear he can. You know, like he doesn't want to. I mean, so I kind of think you might. Man, it's so hard to do though, because if you try to Galvanic Blast the Spellskite,
just blink it.
The Restoration Angel comes down. It's a real tough spot for Vipin. No two ways about it. And I think he is a goner.
I don't know if you knew this. Restoration Angel, it's a pretty good Magic card.
I did.
Yeah, it's a pretty good Magic card.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah. I feel like it's underplayed in Modern.
I don't know. It gets played a lot.
It still feels underplayed, though.
Like, I think at this tournament, there were more Restoration Angels than Tarmogoyfs. So I'm not 100% sure it's underrated.
Bold. Brian going to search out Sacred Foundry right now. We'll see if he's going to put Restoration Angel into play or not.
Pretty confident that there are, I mean, it's close because there's also these black-green rock decks and so on in Tarmo Twin, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's slightly more Restoration Angels than Tarmogoyfs.
There is Restoration Angel. It's going to blink Wall of Roots here, and there's Galvanic Blast, and Vipin says, I have to take care of your Spellskite. So that'll work.
Now, this does leave Brian Liu without any defenses, but if he just goes for it, he won't need them.
The scary thing is, do you just go for it?
Yeah. It's not even,
You just run it?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're not scared, just go. If you're scared, say you're scared. And put the mana down.
There's a Grove of the Burn Willows. It's so easy for us to just say go for it.
Nah, he knows, and he's gonna. But he's not gonna go for it until he reads Vipin and is confident that this is the best line of play. The thing is, he's under no pressure. So it's like, don't leave yourself vulnerable. But at the same time, if you're not even left vulnerable, what's the problem here?
Yeah, that's the thing. Vipin has one card in his hand, and Vipin just immediately was like, okay, kill your Spellskite right now. Which
is the smart play on Vipin's part. Make him respect the possibility that you have something like a Dismember or something,
And
or
Brian,
a Galvanic Blast, another Galvanic Blast.
Brian is sitting here saying, okay, what happens if I go for it and I'm wrong? What happens if I move in, and then he has a Galvanic Blast for one of the creatures, the Kiki-Jiki or the Deceiver Exarch? Can I win? Because the last card in my hand is a Path to Exile, and I have a Birthing Pod, but I paid 4 life to do that. But I don't have, like, any defenses then either, and I'm going to get hit upside the head by these creatures here.
Yeah, and I haven't done the math yet, but my first guess is that there's a way to do this where you just pay a bunch of life to the Birthing Pod and save a white mana so that if everything goes wrong, at the end of the day, you still have a Path to Exile to make sure that you don't die on your next turn, and then you just go off again.
Well, this might be a YOLO moment here. I think we're buckling up, Patrick. Let's pod, shall we?
We shall.
He's going to take 2 to do so. He's going down to 15.
Man, I don't know. I'm not convinced you only live once. I mean, we're in game 2 right now.
You see he's going to add a green mana with Wall of Roots, so he doesn't have to take 2 here. He's going to turn Wall of Roots into a Deceiver Exarch.
Oh, see, I would have just taken the 2 and been like, who cares? Let's leave the Path to Exile mana up.
No. He's going to untap this. He's going to activate that. He's going to take 2. Restoration Angel, get out of here. I want a Kiki-Jiki. Vipin looks at his card. And he's going to go get Kiki.
And that's all she wrote.
And there that is. And that is going to do it.
Cards up. Move to game 3.
Brian Luke can take a deep breath. Going for it was correct. And we're going to a third and final one here in the finals of Richmond.
Absolutely. No sideboard hate needed.
Now, how tough is that to go for it in the finals of a tournament? Or if you're wrong, you basically lose the game, and you're not underneath a lot of pressure, as you mentioned.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Not to put too fine a point on it, but it wasn't like he was facing lethal. And he's playing a combo deck where all you do is go for it. He doesn't really have any alternatives. So I think at this spot, maybe the nerves are there, but Brian Liu is a champion. He's going to power through it, and he's going to be like, you know what? I've done this 100 times. I've done this 1,000 times. I'm going to activate my Kiki-Jiki, and this time I'm going to choose Deceiver Exarch as the target.
Well, he did go for it, and he was correct. So we're playing a third game here. Now,
I think the key, by the way, just to be clear, I think what was great was Brian Liu setting it up and being like, I'm not going to play my Birthing Pod. I'm not going to try to use this Path to Exile. I'm just going to stick to the plan.
Yep.
I've got a plan. I know how I'm going to sculpt this game to be a win. I've got the Spellskite. The odds that he can actually break up my combo are very, very low. I think what I'm going to do is not give any information and just go with the most reliable kill that I can, and it paid off.
Now, we expected, I think, Brian to win game number 2. Even though he didn't draw any of his high-impact sideboard cards like the Fiery Justice or the Shadowstorm or the Grudge, I think we expected him to win game number 2. Now, this is the real sweat here of can Vipin win when he's on the play for game number 3.
Well, also, Vipin's draw that game was nowhere near as aggressive as we've seen out of him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a deck capable of some very degenerate openings, and that one was very, very modest. It wasn't bad. It had some reasonable stuff it was doing, but it wasn't one of his really unfair draws. And if he gets one of the really unfair draws well on the play, Brian Liu's going to be hard-pressed to win unless he draws a sideboard card. Now, the reason I think Liu has the advantage now that he's tied it up, despite the fact that he's on the draw, he's got some cards like Path to Exile and Ancient Grudge that can buy him some time, even against the most aggressive, fastest, most broken affinity draws.
Now, let me ask you this. Now, we know what Vipin's plan is here, obviously, in this game 3. He's on the play. I got on load. I want to kill you as fast as I can. For Brian, he's going to have his back against the wall right away, assuming that Vipin keeps a reasonable 7 cards and does what his deck's supposed to do. Are you mulliganing for a card like Shadowstorm or Fiery Justice, Grudge, or Path in this situation?
I think you just need to have a good hand. I mean, there's a variety of different types of good hands because you're not sure if you're up against a turn 3 or 4 kill hand or if you're up against a Grafdigger's Cage, Torpor Orb, disruptive type of hand.
Okay.
You know, like the last thing you want to do is mulligan to your Shatterstorm and then get thought seized.
Yeah, sure.
So I think you just got to keep any good hand And, you know, any hand that is fast enough to either win the game win the game by turn 4 or put up some meaningful resistance. You cannot do nothing, that is for sure. You can't wait until turn 4 to do anything productive either. You have to be coming out of the gates, whether it's with acceleration into something proactive like a birthing pod or a cord, or just having some hate and, you know, some removal to slow Vipin down. You have to do something fast, though.
Both players are happy with their configurations, and they're shuffling up here for game 3 of the finals. Again, 4,300 players came out here to Richmond to do battle.
Yeah.
It was absolutely insane in here and in the other room, and we somehow made it all work and whittled it down to 2 people here in Vipin and Chackonal and Brian Liu.
As a note, it's what, 7:30 p.m.?
Yeah, I don't know if it's past 8 yet.
There are 4,300 people. There were 4,300 people in this tournament, and this tournament is getting over on time.
Yeah.
That's I mean, not to toot SCG's horn, but that is a well-run event.
It's
you know?
pretty sick stuff. Pretty sick stuff. These guys are gonna have time to go out, eat dinner, celebrate. I think we will too.
Oh, dude. All I know is, yeah, we got to find out which one of them has the trophy. We're in need of cups. I mean, the supplies are running low. I mean, you know how it is. All right, Brian Liu, going to be on the play. No, he's going to be on the draw.
He's on the draw. He's on the draw. This is what makes it tough for him. It looks like he's going back to, someone's thought of something here. He wants to maybe check to make sure he's got 15 there, but maybe he thought of a little something.
Psychological warfare.
Yeah.
Both of these players quite happy to be here. Both of them, their decks have been working. They've had a lot of opportunities where they had to play tight in order to win, and both of them have done so. I mean, we've seen both of these players earn their way here. You know, I mean, sometimes you end up in a spot where somebody's just in the right place at the right time. Both of these guys have been playing fantastic all weekend.
All right, Vipin, you are on the play. Let's take a look at those 7.
I'm opening for the mutual mold of 2. Just mold of 2 on both sides.
Just a little honest magic. Let's just see what happens.
I haven't really seen that in the finals of a GP this year. And so what do
you mean this year? Have you seen it ever?
Well, no.
Yeah, okay.
Not this year either.
Vipin taking a mulligan here. Brian keeping.
Vipin doing his part. Brian, unfortunately, with the double cross.
Yeah. If you're a Brian Liu fan, this is a huge step in the right direction. 1, he's keeping 7 and not mulliganing, but 2, his affinity player, and that deck does not mulligan very well.
No.
Going down to 6.
No, this takes a lot of potential wind out of the sails of the. I mean, it's still capable of some extreme degeneracy, but this takes a lot of wind out of the affinity deck sails because so many of their best openings involve playing 5 or 6 cards, and the difference between 5 and 6 cards is a lot compared to 4 or 5 cards because sometimes that missing card is the mana you needed to play 2 more cards. Yeah. You know.
Now, to be fair, Vipin did win on mulligan to 6 the first game.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but that was a matchup where they both took a mulligan.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And the mulligans hurt much more after sideboard because cards like Path to Exile, Ancient Grudge, Fiery Justice, and Shatterstorm turn this into a much more attrition-y type match than it otherwise would be.
Yeah. So Vipin's gonna have to find 6, and you know, I feel like I want to stress the importance on he needs to find 6 because with affinity, mulligan at 5 is almost not an option. Like he needs to find a keepable 6.
Oh yeah.
Because once you get into 5 territory, you're just the interactions with your deck, just Metalcraft, being able to build that and stuff, it just doesn't really work when you're on a 5-card hand.
I mean, you end up in the spot where you start hoping for some pretty specific hands, like some Thoughtcast type of hands with a lot of mana. It becomes real tough, and you end up just starting to hope that Brian Liu's deck fizzles on him.
Well, there's a keeper. There's an island. That's a Vault Scourge. He'll take 2 to do it.
This is real rough. I mean, at least he has the Mox Opal, but the tough thing here is that he has the 1 island, meaning Path to Exile is a total free roll for Brian, and Galvanic Blast, normally good, less good when in a mulligan type of situation because you don't want to trade 1 for 1 when you're affinity and you're down cards.
Go over the Burn Willows. What a nice guy Brian is, giving Vipin a life in exchange for a Noble Hierarch.
Yeah. That's real kind of the man.
He's really just a nice guy. As Vault Scourge is going to come in. Vipin going to go back to a starting life total of 20. Brian will go down to 19. Here is another copy of Vault Scourge. So we're working our way towards a little something here. And Vipin will cast a Signal Pest. So a real clock is at least on the table right now.
So what do you think of that, putting the Signal Pest down, which represents 2 extra damage, but at the expense of letting the Noble Hierarch live?
Because he has the Galvanic Blast in his hand.
Absolutely. He could have took a gamble and been like, well, maybe he's a little light on mana. Because I think it's a little adventuresome to think that your Galvanic Blast is going to break up the combo, but it's very possible, and at least this way, you put Brian on a 4 or 5 turn clock with a piece of disruption.
I think Galvanic Blast is kind of locked in on going upstairs to the dome this game.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, like if he's made the decision, first of all, to not kill the Hierarch, like it's either A, breaking up the combo, or B, it's just going upstairs. And given the texture of his hand, I think this might just be this thing where, okay, I have the ratio, I don't really have much of an option, and we're just going to nug you and hope that maybe I draw another one and that'll be good enough.
Yeah, like worst case scenario, use it as a backup answer to the combo, but hopefully use it as a time walk.
Well, this is a pretty explosive draw from Brian. He's got a ton of mana. He's got a copy of Kiki-Jiki in his hand. I believe he also has a Chord of Calling in his hand. Now, can this deck kill on turn 3?
Well, it's not going to win this turn, that's for sure.
Well, that was turn 2. Can it kill on turn 3, though?
The Chord deck?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it goes and gets Kataki.
Ah, yeah, that's a fun trick.
That's going to be a...
I had forgotten about that
Now, that's
trick.
another reason to keep Galvanic Blast.
That's true. That's true.
Absolutely.
Now, okay, how much can he core for right now if he wanted to? It would be for 2, right? Because Wall of Roots, remove a counter, Bird.
He could have just corded for Kataki right there.
Yeah, and he just chose not to.
Yeah, perhaps correctly reading that Vipin has to have something. Why is he casting nothing with 3 cards in his hand?
2, 3, 4 mana. This, what is this? That is, oh boy.
Brian Luke has Shatterstorm. It was very effective. Your Grand Prix champion of Grand Prix Richmond, Brian Liu. Being the fun police for the fun police. It is, I mean, Affinity is a cruel, cruel mistress. It really is.
Why can't the artifacts be regenerated? Why is that necessary?
Well, I mean, it's like the difference between Damnation and Day of Judgment, the difference between Shatterstorm and Creeping Corrosion. It's more of a, I'm old school. Let me show you how we used to do it.
Okay.
Welding jar? No. Let me send you a message, and that message is congratulations on your 2nd place finish.
Yeah. Shatterstorm does resolve. Vipin's permanents go into the graveyard. He's left with just a lone island. I think that's why Brian kept his hand so fast, is Vipin's just going to play a Springleaf Drum.
Yeah, I mean, hands with Shatterstorm and 6 other cards that are not covered in corrosive battery acid are generally snap keep in this type of situation.
Aaron Mesa gonna go get out the Hollow Fountain. You can hear Brian Liu fans at home. Kiki Pod fans at home. They are very pleased.
Now, he does need to get something going. He does have the Chord, but if he doesn't get something going, he's currently on an 18-turn clock.
Yep. And I thought that was Kiki-Jiki in his hand. The red card in his hand was Shatterstorm, so I do take that back, and my apologies for that mistake, as there is a Grove of the Burn Willows.
So what's he want here? I mean, like, he's got Chord to go get Eternal Witness to Shatterstorm again at will sometime, but if he has 2 Chords, he can actually just win the game next turn.
I see Brian doing the math right now. If his hand has 2 Chords, then he has what he needs. If he just has 1 Chord in his hand, Witness is an option, I suppose.
No, I think he's gonna he's got everything he needs.
Yeah, I think so too.
All that's left, it's all over but the crying.
So Vipin just draws an island, passes the turn back here. Brian looks like he's reaching for some mana here on the end step. And he wants to make sure, obviously, that he doesn't make some sort of egregious error. So I would take my time if I were him, too. You don't want to mess up here in the finals of a Grand Prix where you are in a very, very nice spot. Yeah,
currently, the computer on the floor, it looks like it's at 100, but it can't really be 100. We assume that it just must be rounding.
Okay.
That it's, 99 with enough 9s that it's,
it's not the full check mark, though.
It says 100, but it's not a check mark because anything could happen.
Noble Hierarch, that's going to tap for some mana, or perhaps helping with Convoke for Chord. And it looks like a little help for Convoke is what we're going to see here. So
yeah, and he's got enough mana, he can get anything, even a boat.
Mm-hmm. What's the casting cost on a boat?
It depends. One of them costs 4 and a blue, one of them costs single blue, one of them costs 3 blue black. One of them costs 2 GG and was in Lorwyn block, I guess, Morning Tide.
So the Restoration is going to come in. It's going to blink Wall of Roots. The die removed. No more -0, -1 counters on there.
Now, what is Brian Liu's last card? Is it actually a Chord? If it's a Chord, then, yeah, it is a Chord.
It is a Chord.
All right. Na, 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 na. Na, 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 na.
You want to crown yourself a champion?
Hey.
You want to crown yourself a champion?
Goodbye.
Chord for 5.
Let's see, do you have any Kiki-Jikis in your deck, maybe?
Maybe he boarded it out. You think he boarded it out?
It's unlikely.
I don't think he boarded it out.
I mean, you got to play to your outs, I guess.
I don't think he boarded it out.
There's
That is it. Brian Liu, Grand Prix Richmond champion.
The biggest constructed Grand Prix ever conceived of by mankind.
Won by Kiki Pod.
Who would have thought? Kiki Jiki, the mirror breaker, Kiki Pod taking the two big enemies, the two big combo decks that people were most targeting, Pod and Kiki Jiki Splinter Twin, merging them to form this abomination.
With perfect mana.
With mana.
Yeah, getting the job done. Congratulations to Brian Liu, yet again, the winner of the largest constructed tournament of all time, Grand Prix Richmond.
But an